for coming back. Today we're all about air, wind, ocean, and ultimately the El Nino effect. And so if you haven't gotten these notes yet, hit pause and grab them. I wanted to make one last point about air circulation before we get into the ocean. And so if you look at where we would be here as the United States or California, we'd be right here where the westerlies are coming in. So our air is coming from the west and going east. And so that means our air is coming from Asia. And what's interesting about that is, well, as we probably know, Asia doesn't have the best air quality. And so for a while now, we've been picking up significant amounts of particulate matter that we have linked back to China. And so that's just something to think about. And then, of course, we contribute to air pollution as well. One of the things that we don't really hear a lot about is acid precipitation here in California, but we do produce sulfur dioxides and nitrogen oxides that just blow east. And so other places experience the acid rain that we kind of help generate. And so here we go with the ocean currents. The nice thing is that they follow the wind currents for the most part. So the wind is driving the surface ocean currents. Of course, we've got things like high and low tides caused by phases of the moon. We're not going there right now. We're just going to stick to the surface currents. And so if you look at this map here, you'll see if you look at this arrow here and this arrow here, it kind of looks like it's mimicking the trade winds. And this is the ocean currents coming down. It's getting pushed by the trade winds. Up here, it looks like it's coming from the polar easterlies. But of course, it can't be that simple. If you understand this, you're well on your way to understanding the ocean currents. But of course, then we've got these big land masses that get in the way and block the currents. And so it's a little bit more tricky, quite a bit, actually. And so, and then of course we've got Central America here, so the water can't get through there anymore as well. And so you've got, but it's still, for our purposes, if you can just kind of think about it like this, you'll be in good shape. And so the major thing we're going to focus on right now is the effect of these trade winds that are happening, trade winds here too. And what we've got happening or in normal conditions is you've got these trade winds that are blowing the warm water away from South America, and so that this is along the equator right there. So it's warm, but the trade winds are blowing that surface water away, and it's kind of an interesting phenomenon. It allows cold water to come up, and so they call that an upwelling. Where it's the opposite of convection, where you've got warm things rising, now cold things are coming up, and it's nice because it brings like food and nutrients and stuff from the bottom up. And over here is Australia, and they've got warm water kind of getting pushed down because it's running into Australia. So kind of the opposite of convection. But so what the effect is that it makes it really good for the fish. So the fishing industry is really strong right around here, Peru, Ecuador. And if you want to go scuba diving and snorkeling in really warm water, you go over here to Indonesia and Australia, and you'll be in good shape over there. But so for reasons that are not entirely understood, during an El Nino year, these trade winds get weak and even stop altogether. And what happens is now those warm waters aren't getting blown away, and they can even back up. And so you've got really warm water happening around Peru and Ecuador, and the effect is dramatic. One, for the fishing industry, now that that upwelling doesn't happen anymore, and so the food's not there, and the water's really warm, and so the fish that they're used to fishing leave. And sometimes they come up our way, and so you get tropical fish that you're just like, well, what are these things doing here? Because, you know, just all bets are off during the El Nino year. And over here, you've got colder water, and more so than affecting the fishing industry, it affects the weather. And so we are getting that warm, or especially around Peru and Ecuador, they get that really warm water, which is carrying a lot, and you know, it wants to evaporate, and so you got moisture in the air, and it leads to intense storms, which lead to flooding and things like that. 1997 was the last really big El Nino. I had a friend living in Ecuador right there on the coast. And remember, most people live within 100 miles of the coast. And they were having massive flooding there, and the communities were just not prepared to deal with it. And so tragic. If anybody asks you about where El Nino is happening, your first answer is Ecuador and Peru. That's where it's most pronounced. And then also on the flip side, over here in Australia, Indonesia, this area, now they're getting drought. And so it just kind of flips everything. And it affects us too. And so hopefully it'll be for the positive since we really need the precipitation. But just to compare 1997, which is here, to 2015, look at how much warmer the water is right around California, and it's basically getting pushed up from down here. It looks like to me in 1997 the water was warmer there and not quite as warm here, but now it's a little bit different. So we can expect continued rainstorms and snowstorms and blizzards and the whole thing. And we hope that it stays cold so that snowpack lasts, because that's really what's going to help us out with our water situation. You guys are going to blow your minds here. What I want to do right now is do a YouTube inside of a YouTube. Check this out.
The notion that a drought in Indonesia or the Philippines could be caused by the same conditions that produce torrential rains in the United States, Peru, and Chile might appear to the casual observer to defy logic. But in fact, that's exactly what can happen during the extraordinary chain of events known as El Nino.
El Nino is the appearance from time to time of warm water in the central and eastern Pacific Ocean. Normally there's a pool of warm water in the western Pacific, and that's because of the way the earth turns and the winds blow. Water piles up in the western part of the basin. The sea level along Indonesia and the Philippines is higher by 60, 50 centimeters than it is off the coast of Peru. So what happens is the winds keep blowing, the water piles up, it heats up in the western part of the Pacific. But then once in a while, it'd be every 2 years apart, it'd be 10 years apart, that wind weakens and that warm water that's piled up sloshes back towards the central and eastern Pacific. Where the warm water is where you get your evaporative processes, evaporation, and clouds that produce rainfall.
Now that has an effect locally, as you can imagine. Ordinarily, with all those rain clouds over Indonesia, there's a lot of rain in that region. There's rain over Australia. It's fairly dry in the east. During an El Nino, when you've got all this convective precipitation over the east, it can rain a lot in that region. You can have flooding in Peru. Conversely, you have drought over Indonesia and Australia. It can also have effects pretty far away. And the reason that happens is the atmosphere can support these wave-like motions. It's just like dropping a pebble in a stream. Although the pebble is at one little place, the ripples can go very far away.
So I think we got what we needed to get from that. And so I wanted to show you one more thing before we're out of here. And so the big question is there a link between climate change and El Nino events? Does climate change cause more El Nino events? And these El Nino events are, it leads to pretty dramatic weather, and we like to minimize that dramatic weather. And so the last article that I found was from Scientific American, and it was back in 2013, and they are finding that there is a link, a Scientific American, which is a pretty notable scientific journal, but there hasn't been a whole lot more that I was able to find that with evidence kind of demonstrating a stronger link since then. And so I guess the verdict is still out on that. I think it's safe to say that climate change would help. Warmer climate, the climate already being warmer, combined with an El Nino effect is like a double whammy. And so we've got that to look forward to. So I hope you found all this interesting. Thanks for sticking with me, and we'll see you next time.